The most important invention of the 20th century is not the personal computer. It's not the airplane, the television, or even the harnessed power of the atom. The most important invention of the last 100 years is a simple rectangle of rough-hewn wood and nails that you have probably seen 1,000 times and never once truly noticed. It hides in plain sight, in the alleyways behind grocery stores, stacked in dusty corners of construction sites, and flashing by in the back of 18-wheelers on the highway. It's the invisible backbone of our world, the silent, unsung engine that powers nearly everything you own, everything you eat, and everything you wear. What if I told you that without this one humble object, the global economy would grind to a halt, that your smartphone, your morning coffee, your favorite pair of sneakers, none of it would be in your possession, at least not at a price you could afford? What if I told you that this simple wooden frame was a more critical weapon in World War II than almost any tank, and that it is the true architect of our modern, interconnected world? This is the story of the humble pallet, and it's the story of how a simple idea about how to lift things transformed humanity. To understand the genius of the pallet, you first have to understand the world without it, a world of chaos. Picture the docks of New York or London in the 1920s. A massive cargo ship has just arrived, its belly filled with goods from across the ocean. Coffee from Brazil, textiles from India, machinery from Germany. But these goods aren't in neat, uniform boxes. They're in a bewildering mess of sacks, crates, barrels, and loose bundles of every imaginable size and shape. This was the era of break-bulk shipping, and it was pure, brute force. Swarms of longshoremen would descend into the ship's hold. For days, sometimes for over a week, they would perform back-breaking labor. A man would heave a 100-pound sack of flour onto his shoulder, carry it up a rickety gangplank, and drop it on the pier. Then he'd go back for another and another and another. Every single item on that ship was moved by hand, one piece at a time. It was incredibly slow. It was punishingly expensive, with up to half the total cost of shipping being spent on just loading and unloading the cargo. It was also incredibly inefficient. Goods were frequently damaged, lost, or stolen. A simple rainstorm could ruin a shipment waiting on the docks. This logistical nightmare was the great bottleneck of global trade. You could move a product across an ocean in 2 weeks, only for it to sit in port for another week, waiting to be unloaded by hand. The world needed a better way to lift. The first glimmer of a solution came not with the pallet, but with its mechanical partner, the forklift. Early versions of powered lift trucks began appearing in the 1910s and 20s. These machines could lift far more than any human. But what exactly were they supposed to lift? They couldn't just pick up a loose pile of sacks. They needed a platform. The ancestor of the pallet was born, the skid. It was a simple platform, a single layer of wooden planks nailed to runners that allowed a forklift's tines to slide underneath. This was a step forward, but it was still flawed. You could only approach a skid from 2 sides, and you couldn't easily stack them. For 2 decades, this was the state of the art. A partial solution, used here and there in factories and warehouses, but the world at large still ran on muscle and sweat. It took the largest global conflict in human history to finally force the revolution. When the United States entered World War II in 1941, it faced a logistical challenge of unprecedented scale. It had to become the arsenal of democracy, supplying not just its own military, but the Allied forces across the entire planet. An unimaginable torrent of bullets, beans, and boots had to be moved from factories in the American heartland, onto trains, into warehouses, onto ships, and finally to the front lines in Europe and the Pacific. The old way, the break-bulk way, would have been a disaster. The war would have been lost in the ports, choked by the sheer volume of supplies. The U.S. military realized it needed a system, a standardized, efficient, fast system for moving goods. And at the heart of that system was a simple but profound evolution of the skid. They added a second set of planks to the bottom. It sounds almost comically simple, but adding that bottom deck created the modern pallet. Now a forklift could pick it up from all 4 sides, making it vastly more flexible in a crowded warehouse or ship's hold. More importantly, the bottom deck distributed weight evenly, which meant you could now stack loaded pallets on top of each other, 3, 4, 5 high. Suddenly, You weren't just using the floor space of a warehouse, you were using its entire cubic volume. You had created a modular, stackable, interchangeable block of goods. The military ordered millions of them. They created a vast supply chain, the pallet pool, to manage them. A factory in Ohio would load ammunition onto a standard 48 by 48-inch military pallet. That pallet would be loaded by forklift onto a train. The train would take it to a port in New Jersey, where a bigger forklift would lift the entire pallet and place it directly into the hold of a ship. When the ship arrived in England, another forklift would unload that same pallet, put it on a truck, and drive it directly to an airfield, where its contents could be quickly loaded onto a plane. The unit of movement was no longer the individual box or sack, it was the pallet. The results were staggering. A team of longshoremen might have taken 3 days to unload 13,000 cases of canned goods. With forklifts and pallets, the same job took 4 hours. Labor costs plummeted, shipping times were slashed. The flow of supplies to the front became a mighty efficient river, a river that the Axis powers simply could not match. The humble pallet didn't fire a single shot, but it was an indispensable weapon of war. When the war ended, the millions of soldiers and logistics officers who had seen the power of this system came home. They went to work in factories and shipping companies, and they brought the pallet with them. But there was a problem. In the civilian world, there was no single authority like the military. Every industry had its own preferred pallet size. The grocery industry used one size, the chemical industry another, the automotive industry a third. It was a Tower of Babel built of wood. A forklift at a grocery warehouse couldn't efficiently unload a truck from a canned goods company if their pallets were different sizes. The final, crucial step in the pallet's rise to world domination was standardization. In the 1960s, the American grocery industry, one of the largest and most complex supply chains in the world, finally came together. The Grocery Manufacturers Association, or GMA, settled on a standard size, 48 inches by 40 inches. This was the tipping point. The 48 by 40 pallet became the universal language of commerce. Now a farmer in California could load produce onto a GMA pallet, and that same pallet could travel seamlessly through distributors, warehouses, and trucks, all the way to the back room of a grocery store in Maine. Every truck trailer was designed to fit GMA pallets perfectly. Every warehouse rack was built to hold them. Every forklift was designed to lift them. The system had arrived. This is the moment where the world you know begins to take shape. Because the true power of the pallet isn't just about saving time or money in a warehouse. It's about what that efficiency makes possible. Think about the rise of big box stores like Walmart, Costco, or Home Depot. Their entire business model is based on moving massive volumes of goods at razor-thin margins. That is physically impossible without the pallet. They receive entire truckloads of palletized goods, which are moved directly from the truck to the sales floor. That giant stack of bottled water or paper towels you see at the end of the aisle, it's often still on the very same pallet it was loaded onto at the bottling plant. This system bypasses the entire costly process of unloading boxes by hand and stocking shelves one item at a time. Without the pallet, there is no Costco. Think about the speed of modern e-commerce. When you click Buy Now on Amazon, you trigger a complex ballet inside a massive fulfillment center. That ballet is choreographed around the pallet. Bulk goods arrive on pallets, are stored in racks on pallets, and are then moved by forklift or robotic sled to picking stations, all with incredible speed and precision. The promise of next-day delivery is a promise written on the back of a pallet. But its biggest impact is one you can see every time you look at the tags on your clothes, your electronics, or your food. The pallet, along with its larger cousin, the shipping container, is the engine of globalization. Before, the high cost of loading and unloading goods meant it was often too expensive to ship low-value items long distances. The pallet crushed that cost barrier. It suddenly became economically viable to manufacture a product in a country with low labor costs, load it onto a pallet, slip that pallet into a shipping container, and send it halfway around the world. The pallet created a frictionless world for physical goods. It connected a factory in Shenzhen, China, to a Walmart shelf in Omaha, Nebraska, creating one vast, interconnected, and brutally efficient global machine. It's a machine that has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and given consumers in developed nations access to an unprecedented variety of affordable goods. Today, this invisible architecture is running on a truly mind-boggling scale. There are an estimated 2 billion pallets in circulation in the United States alone, and perhaps 5 or 6 billion worldwide. On any given day, they are carrying the weight of the world economy on their wooden shoulders. And the story isn't over. The humble pallet continues to evolve. Many are now made of durable, cleanable plastic, essential for the food and pharmaceutical industries. Others are being embedded with RFID chips and sensors, creating smart pallets that can track their location, temperature, and condition in real time, providing a level of data and control that was unimaginable just a decade ago. We are entering an age of pallet-level visibility for the entire global supply chain. So the next time you're behind a grocery store and you see a stack of discarded pallets, I want you to pause for a moment. Don't just see a pile of scrap wood. See the culmination of a century of innovation. See the object that fed armies, built empires of commerce, and stitched together the modern world. See the silent, sturdy hero that carries our lives from the factory to our front door. Look around you, at the device you're watching this on, the chair you're sitting in, the coffee mug on your desk. Almost everything you can see right now took a ride on a pallet. It is the single most successful and ubiquitous piece of design in the modern world, and it achieved this by being simple, strong, and standardized. It's a powerful lesson in how sometimes the most revolutionary ideas are the ones that are so brilliantly simple, they become invisible. If you enjoy these deep dives into the invisible systems and overlooked engineering that shape our world, that's what we explore here on Manual Mode. These are the stories hiding in plain sight. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell so you don't miss our next investigation. This is Manual Mode, and I have a question for you. What other humble, everyday object do you think has a world-changing story we've all overlooked? The zipper? The paperclip? The screw? Let me know your ideas in the comments below. I read all of them, and your suggestion might just become our next story. Thank you for watching.